Joshua chapter 16.
16?
16. We flew when you were not here.
Yes. Oh.
It says, Vayetze Hagaral, that the lot went out for Bnei Yisrael, for Bnei Yosef, for the children of Yosef, Miyardain Yerecho, from the Jordan on the Jericho, at Jericho, Lemei Yericho, Mizracha, to the waters of Jericho to the east. So we're on the east right now. Hamidbar Olam Yericho Bahar Beit El, and the desert or the wilderness, however you want to translate Midbar, because Midbar can be translated, and it's normally wilderness really, not desert. Negev would be more desert. But the Midbar, the wilderness, which went up from Jericho to on the mountain of to Beit El. Vayatza. Okay, so that's again. We are going through borders of the individual places. This is, as we said last week, the definition of borders. When you buy a piece, when you buy land, your deed of property tells you what those borders are. So this is this is the deed that is given to each one of the tribes, so that they could not say later on that, or others could not impinge on their property later on. So that's why it has to be written down exactly what they were, instead of just saying the United States, if you will, of Israel. So you can't do that. So each one had their own portion. So this is their deed, as it were. Okay, and so now that's what we're going through all these named places. Vayatza mi Beit El Luza, and it went from Beit El to Luz. V'avar, and it passed along to El Gavul Ha'arki, to the border of Arki, Atarot to Atarot. V'yarad Yama, and it went down toward the sea. Westward. El Gavul Ha'Yafleti, to the border of the Yafleti. Ad Gavul Beit Charon, until the border of Beit Charon. Tachton, to the lower, Aviad Gezer, to the border of the lower Beit. Ad Gavul Beit Charon Tachton. That's what happened. I knew something was wrong. Until the border of the lower Beit Charon, Viad Gazer, until Gezer, Vayutos Otav Yama, and his goings out were to the sea. All these, like I said, are named places. It's I have no idea where these places are. Go to a map and look at a general. You'll see the general places. I think our school gives you general maps as to what's going on here. But as far as the exact name places, I'm not. We don't have these name places anymore. Vayinchu bnei Yosef, Menashe v'Ephraim, and the children of Yosef, who were Menashe and Ephraim, Vayu Gavul bnei Ephraim. So that was, again, we were originally talking about bnei Yosef, right? So bnei Yosef got that group. Now we have to divide it between Ephraim and Menashe, because that's what Yaakov wanted when he split the land, when he told Yosef, I'm making you into two tribes. So they are splitting the land that will go to Yosef. So Vayi Gavul b'nei Ephraim l'mishkotam. So then this was the border of the children of Ephraim according to their families. Vayi Gavul nachalatam mizracha, and it would go. Their inheritance would go from the east, on the east side of Atarot Adar, ad Beit Charon Elyon, till the upper Beit Charon. So Vayatza Gavul Hayama. So then the western border would go to Hamich Metat Mitzafon, to that place on the north side. Vanessa Gavul Mizracha, and then the border turned around on the east to Tanat Shiloh, to that place called Tanat Shiloh. V'avar Tomi Mizrach Yanocha, and it would pass over to the east of Yanoach. there's really when the rabbis are talking about this, what they are trying to do is describe, like Rashi, he's describing the land of masses. Again, since I don't know South Bend, I don't know where I live. Never mind these places where I don't live. But if you would look at a map, I would suggest looking at a map one time.
Does the Beit El that's mentioned in Yeshua here, does the present settlement of Beit El in the West Bank have any relationship to this?
Probably some relationship.
They think that's where it might have been.
Again, all these places, there with all of the border, the different empires that went in and changed the names. Let's not forget that. You had the Roman Empire, they changed the names of the place in order to wipe out the Jewish consciousness of the place because we were rebellious against them. So they were going to wipe that up. The Ottoman Empire would have no reason to keep the Jewish names, or for that matter, the Roman names, and or the Christian names, whoever they were beating up at the time. And the Arabs certainly had no reason to keep these names. Yeah. And that's why even to this very day that they have that the Palestinian control is over the Temple Mount, and they're trying to wipe out all remnants of the Jews on the Temple Mount too. So it wouldn't be, it's like I said, to actually have the name places, you're not going to find it. You may have there may be some remnant of it when it comes to something like Beit El, Yerushalayim, Shiloh, those places which are more famous. They probably are the same ones. Sodom and Amorah, again, it's there. We have basic places where we think they were. We know where the Yam HaMelech is. We know the Salt Sea is. We know En Gedi. We know certain places we know because they can't be changed. Even if they would, even when people came in, you're not going to change the Salt Sea. You can't move it. So, and En Gedi, the same thing. You can't move the oasis is known as En Gedi. You just can't move it. Masada, you can't move. So, those places we know. But you're looking at little towns. So towns, we're not going to be able to know for sure where they were, which is why when you look at the old maps, they say it could have been here, it could have been there, different places. I'm still waiting for somebody to yell at me and say, of course we know where all these places are. But I would challenge them to say, show me. Okay. So now we're in Zion. So this is V'yarad miyanocha atarot v'na'arata. So it went down from Yanocha to Atarot v'na'arat, and then to Na'arata, ufaga biricho, and it reached Jericho, v'yatza hayarden, and went out at the Jordan. Mi patuach yelech hagavul yama. So the border went westward from Tapuach to the Nachal Kana, to the stream of Kana, v'ayutosatav hayama, and his goings outward to the sea. Zot Nachalat Mate Bnei Ephraim leMishkatam. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the Bnei Ephraim, the children of Ephraim, to their families. Ve'ha'arim hamuvdalot livnei Ephraim, and the cities that were separated for the children of Ephraim, betoch Nachalat Bnei Menashe, among the inheritance of Menashe, kol ha'arim v'chasreihem, all the cities and their villages. Velo horishu et Kanani hayoshe b'gazer, and they did not drive out the Canaanite inhabitants who were in Gazer. Vayeshev haKanaani b'kerev Ephraim ad yom hazeh, and the Canaanites remained in the midst of Ephraim until this day. Vahi lemas oved, and they became servants under the tribute. In other words, they had to pay taxes. The same reason that Mr. Stubbins says, why didn't they drive them out? is for the same reason. Chozer b'nei Ephraim ki gazer hui hayna mechalatam min harim. Again, is going back to b'nei Ephraim, where Gazer, the place Gazer was part of their portion. Asher amdu gavul ha'olef mitavuch. Okay, so it just says that they remained. It doesn't give the reason what it means, but like we said before, whenever it says they didn't drive them out, it was that they had accepted to live under them. So it wasn't because of lack of ability to force them out. They just didn't drive them out, and this is what becomes part of the sin. So they don't drive these people out. Okay. Anything else here? No. Okay. Vaya Goral Amatem Menashe. So now we have to come to the border of. We're in chapter 17. We're flying. Never saw this much flying before. Okay. The lottery went out for the tribe of Menashe. Ki hu bechor Yosef. He was the firstborn of Yosef. And so Rashi says, why does it have to mention that here? Because Rashi says, therefore, Natal Techila bimei Moshe be'ever Yarden. They took it first in the days of Moshe on the other side of the Jordan. Vahilo Gilad and Bashan. It would be to him Gilad and Bashan. So they had already inherited some parts with Moshe, but we have to hear that they were still the firstborn. Why do you also have to hear? I'll ask you another question. Why also do I have to hear that he was the firstborn? Anyway? Who should have inherited the land first? The firstborn or the secondborn?
Firstborn.
Okay, so who did in reality? On the other side of the Jordan? Ephraim. Ephraim was the one who was given the land first, right? First they said to bnei Yosef, and Ephraim we hear first. And only Menashe do we hear second. That's why Rashi has to say, the reason we hear about him first, the reason we have to hear that he's Bechor here is because he already inherited some land on the other side of the Jordan. But really, the Metzudas David argues, says, Av Shehu HaBechor, even though he was the Bechor, V'haya im came min haroi lakacha garalo rishon. He should have taken the portion first. He should have had the first portion given. How mikol makom. However, nitachir milakacha garalo shalakach Ephraim techila. But what happened was he took it after Ephraim was given his inheritance. And then the lottery went out for Menashe. Yaakov. This is because of the blessing of Yaakov. Dimu b'chol davar, that he put Ephraim before Menashe. So it goes back to Yaakov, the father, who, when he sees his grandchildren, Ephraim and Menashe, and he's going to bless them, he says, you should be like Ephraim and Menashe. He should have said, you should be like Menashe and Ephraim. But because he said you should be like Ephraim and Menashe, and he made Ephraim, he put his right hand, he went like this, right hand on Ephraim, his left hand on Menashe, the right hand symbolizing power. Is this my right hand? No, that's my left hand. My left hand on right. So he went like this, he crossed his hands. I remember that. Look at where I am. Okay, so this is the hand of power. And this should have been the oldest one, but he puts it on the youngest one. So since he put this on the youngest one, symbolizing the youngest one, because of the Torah that he had learned, and so Yaakov is making a judgment here. It doesn't matter who's older; it matters who's more learned and in Torah. Since Ephraim was the one who was constantly learning Torah with his grandfather, that's why when Ephraim is given the foot up, if you will, or you hear that. And Menashe, who's also probably a Talmud Chacham in his own right, still wasn't as good as Ephraim. So that's what he was saying. You don't worry about who was born first. You worry more about who's doing what they should be doing. Okay? Again, I'm not condemning, God forbid, at Menashe, but apparently Ephraim was better at that sort of thing. So when he gets that blessing from his grandfather, that's why he is given the land first, and that's all he says. And then, but again, that's when he defaults to. They were already given land on the other side, so you can go either way with that. Good. And then it continues to say, the Macher, to Macher, the Bechor of Menashe, who was the firstborn of Menashe, Avi HaGilad, the father of Gilad, Kihu Haya Ish Milchama, because he was a man of war, Vahilo HaGilad V'ha Bashan. So, therefore, he had Gilad and Bashan. Now, Mr. David says, why do we have to hear about Machir? Rosh Lemor Aval B'vnei Menashe Shelo Hayta Tziba Malahakdim Atzah Elu HaBechor. But when it comes to the children of Menashe, there's seemingly no reason to put the younger child to the in front of the Bechor. So for this, the Bechor gets the firstborn. In other words, Menashe, we hear about what happened to his children first. So Avi HaGilad, he becomes the father of Gilad. Al Shem Beno Gilad, and apparently Machir's son was Gilad. That's why it's called that. Or Rosh Lemor Sarah Gilad, or it could be that he's the officer of Gilad, and it was just called that by. He was called Avi Gilad as a result of what happened in the end. He's called the man of war. Why is he called the man of war? It says Bachar L'Sheva Be'ev Yarden Al Sfar, because he chose to dwell on the other side of the Jordan, on the border, B'makom Sekana, in a place of danger, Harot Havos Galilim et Gevoroto, to show the idol worshippers his strength. Gilad Bashan. That's why he was given Gilad and Bashan. So if you want to know who the true strong guys are, you just look and see who's on the border towns. The people in Arizona would be very happy to know that they're the Giborim of the United States of America. And where else is it? The border towns? Texas? Texas also is on the border, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Texas, Arizona, all those guys, they're holding the line. They would be for in this situation, they want to show their strength. Now we have to understand, Machir and everybody else here is not saying it's my strength, rather it's Hashem's strength, and that's why the Mitzvah David is saying he wanted to show the idol worshippers that they were strong. That's all. So it's not that they were saying we're strong because we work out and we're experts in the armed forces. What they were saying was God's our protector and we're not afraid of him. Okay. Bait. Two. So Vayilev Ne Menashe Notarim L'Shvatam. So there was also a lot for the rest of the family of Menashe who remained according to their families. Livnei Aviezer, Livnei Chelek. So to the children of Aviezer, to the children of Chelek, Livnei Asriel, to the children of Asriel, Livnei Shechem, to the children of Shechem, to Livnei Chefer, to the children of Chefer, Livnei Shmidan, to the children of Shmida. Ele bnei Menashe ben Yosef. These are the children of, these are the sons of Menashe, the son of Yosef. Hazecharim lemishpachotam. The males, the male children, are by their families. Well, this, okay, fine. So Usalav Velislav. Oh, I'm tired to say. Okay, Velislavchad. It's a hard name to say, no matter what you do. Ben Chefer ben Gilad, and to Salavchad, who was the son of Chefer, and the grandson of Gilad, the great grandson of Ben Machir, and the great grandson of Menashe. So you have 5 things going on here. Lo hayu lo banim. He did not have any sons. Ki im banot. He only had daughters. the Elish Shmopenotav, and these are the names of the daughters. Machla, Vinoah, Chagla, Milka, Vetirza. 5 girls. Yeah, no boys. And now we have to have a little bit of history going on here. And so what happens is, V'tikravna livnei Elazar Kohen. So they came near to Elazar the Kohen. Livnei Yoshua ben Nun, and before Yoshua ben Nun. Livnei Hanasim, and before the princes Lemor saying, Hashem tziva et Moshe. Hashem commanded Moshe, Lanu nachala b'tochachenu, to give us a portion amongst our brothers. Veitin lehem al pi Hashem nachala, and he gave to them. So Joshua gave to them a portion according to the word of Hashem, b'toch achei avihen, and an inheritance according amongst the brothers of their fathers. Any questions there? No? Why do you think they had to go up for, and why do you think she had to, the 5 girls, had to go in front of everybody to give this whole speech? Anybody? Nobody wants to say? No? Why do you think? Why do you think they had to say it in front of? Why do you think they had to go up? That's one question. Why didn't Joshua know what Moshe had commanded or what Hashem had commanded? Second thing, if they're coming up to Yehoshua, who's able to give the land, why do they have to go to Elazar the priest? And on top of that, why do they have to go before the princes?
Was there a question about whether or not the daughters had an inheritance?
Nope, they were told they would have inheritance in numbers.
So what was the question? Why did they have to go before Yeshua?
Why before Yeshua? Why before? And if you want to say Yeshua, they had to because he's a leader. Why Elazar? And certainly why the princes? Why do they have to go in front of everybody? Just say, okay, where's my land? And they have to remind everybody that Hashem told Moshe.
Maybe they had to make a public display or something because maybe the rest of the people would not be aware. I don't know.
Okay, that's a possibility. Not where I want to go, but it's possible. Okay, what else? Let me have another possibility. How many years has it been since they've entered the land of Israel?
10 years? I don't
No.
know.
It takes 7 years to conquer and 7 years to split up. So 14 years. So it could be people died. It could be a lot of things that happened. But it could be also that...
Still they learned the Torah.
Huh?
Still they learned the Torah. Straight on the Torah that Musaf had get land Israel, get the inheritance on Israel.
Maybe they didn't learn. Maybe they heard it. I don't know. How many people hear the Torah and don't know what they're hearing or don't listen? You ever think about that? You can hear the Torah read every year, and when I ask you a question on the Torah, you're not going to know it because it wasn't something that you really thought about. So, or it could be that it's only for the tribe of Menashe. It could be a lot of things.
Oh, you hear it read every year, but not really
Not
stop and figure out what it's talking
not
about.
really paying attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, think
Even
about
when
it.
you're hearing and understanding the words, let's say.
Right?
Yeah.
Or if you read in English.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. If you read English or the languages that you understand, you're not going to get every single thing from that unless you're really metactic on every single word there. So
I mean, so it'd be the same way back then as it is now.
we haven't
just
changed.
Take it word for word at face value. How do you know what it means?
Right. and how do we know which portion you're going to get? It could be that. So now the Commentary Digest, that's from the Judaica Press, right? Judaica Press, right? So they came up with this. And they said, they came before Elazar the priest, before Joshua the son, and the princes. And it says, it would have sufficed to say, And they said before Elazar the priest and before Joshua the son of Nun, and they came near is completely superfluous. Likewise, saying is unclear. The word saying, it would have been clearer had Scripture just said, and they said. It can be explained thus: the daughters prepared the case before they came before Elazar the priest and before Joshua. They came here to say blah blah blah, and they came here in order to state their case. So they know they have to come to Joshua. By the way, why Elazar the priest? Because he's working with Joshua. He's the high priest, and he's the one who's doing the lottery. He's the one who has the Orim V'Tumim. It's all the names are coming through him. So really, they have to go to him because he's part and parcel of giving out the land. If she wouldn't go to the princes, by the way, if she would have exempted the princes, that could have caused a bit of a problem too, because it could have been just a slight rebellion going on there. So she's coming in front of, they come in front of everybody, and they say, God, and they present their case. Once again, remind them 14 years later, it's not that we want the land because our father died. And that's it. We want to, because they already got married too. Don't forget, they already got married to their uncles, I believe. If you look, if I remember correctly, or their cousins, I forget what it was. But it's, but they are saying God gave us this land through Moses, so we have this portion, and we like to collect. Fine. So what happens? Vayiplu, and this is a strange word here. They fell. The Chevle Menashe Asara. There fell 10 portions of Menashe, Levad Me'eretz Gilad, besides the land of Gilad and Bashan, Asher Me'ever Yarden, that was on the other side of the Jordan. Again, the word Vayiplu is very strange. So, he says like this, again, we'll go with this for 2 seconds. And there fell 10 portions to Menashe, 6 for the 6 fathers, houses enumerated above, and 4 for the daughters of Shalachat, not that each one should be considered an individual father's house, for there were 5, but they received 4 shares. The share of their father, who was one of those who left Egypt, and according to the number of those who left Egypt, was the land apportioned. And his share with his brothers in the property of Chefer, who was also one of the who left Egypt, and he was the firstborn, and received 2 portions. And in addition, they had the share of their father's brother, who died in the wilderness without children, and they received inheritance in his share. Our rabbi stated this in Baba Batra. This is a Gemara. It was not necessary for the scripture to relate to us the number of the daughters' shares, except to teach us that they received the firstborn share, and to inform us that Eretz Yisrael was an inherited share, which belonged to them from the time of their forefathers. For otherwise, the firstborn does not receive an extra share of that which is fit to come into his father's possession, as he does in that which his father had already acquired. All right, so that's you're getting some interesting background there. Okay. Next. Okay, so ki benot we're on 6 now. Ki benot Menashe nachlu nachala b'toch banav. Because the daughters of Menashe had an inheritance among the sons of the Eretz of Gilad, Haital of Menashe and Notarem, and the rest of Menashe's sons had the land of Gilad, and that is, Rashi explains, Be'eva Yarden Haita, that was across the Jordan, the Bnei Menashe and Notarem, so to the rest of the tribe of Menashe. So they're on both sides. Let's not forget. Menashe is on both sides of the Jordan. And they're not, there's a Jordan separating them, so it's really not contiguous. I remember the map. Okay, so Zion. Vahigavu Menashe, so the border of Menashe on this side of the Jordan is Me'asher, Hamich, Metat, from Asher to Michmetat, and Asher al Pnei Shechem, which is before Shechem, or in front of, Vehalach al Gavul el Yamin. So that border went along to the right, El Yoshvei Ein Tapuach, to the inhabitants of Ein Tapuach. LeMenashe Haita Eretz Tapuach. To Menashe was the land of Tapuach. And that means, Rashi explains, the Kfarim ve'Chatzerim, the villages and the settlements. Itself, Tapuach was itself the name of the city, and that belonged to Ephraim. So Ephraim is getting Tapuach, but they're getting Ein Tapuach. We're close. But Tapuach el Gevul Menashe Ephraim, and Tapuach on the border of Menashe belonged to the children of Ephraim. V'yarad Gevul. So the border went down, Nachal Kana, Negbal Nachal, from to the brook of Kana to the south of the brook. Arim Eila, the Ephraim, these cities belonged to Ephraim, betoch Arei Menashe, among the cities of Menashe, Ugavul Menashe Mitzvon Nachal. And so the border of Menashe was to the north side of the river, Vayhita Sotav Hayama, and the outgoing and his outgoings were to the sea. So Negba 10, Negba le Ephraim Safon Menashe. So the southward it was to Ephraim, and northward to Menashe. Vayhi Yam Gvulo, and the sea was its border. Uva Asher Yifgeun Mitzafon, and Asher they met Asher in the north. Uva Yisachar min Mizrach, and Yisachar was from to the east. So we're really it's a whole family unit coming on here. And then what do you want to say here? Nothing. So now 11. Vayhi leMenashe b'Yisachar v'Asher. So then Menashe had in Yisachar and in Asher Beit Sha'an uvnoteha. So the place called Beit Sha'an and its towns. V'Yivlaim and Yivlaim uvnoteha and its towns. V'Yad Yoshvei Dor uvnoteha and the inhabitants of Dor and its towns. V'Yoshvei ein Dor uvnoteha and the inhabitants of Ein Dor and its towns, V'Yoshvei Tanach uvnoteha, and the inhabitants of Tanach and its towns, V'Yoshvei Megiddo uvnoteha Shloshet Hanafet, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its towns, three regions. You also have. There's something, I don't know what, Endor is some places famous, either because of my son watching something in Greek literature, what's it called, a place called Endor, or the Witches of Endor.
Yeah, with salt.
There you go, I knew something with Endor.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it was Harry Potter or if it was okay, now you're talking Endor. I feel like it's all these things that the kids watch these days. They all use the same names, so it's interesting. But the Witches of Endor. So that may be where Endor was.
The Ein Dor. What does the Ein part mean?
Well.
Yeah. Dor.
The well of Dor. So it could mean that, or that's normally what it means. But these the names all mean something, and they all have to do with your town, probably. And like we would say here, Main Street and so on and so forth. But it's I'm not aware of every name. But Dor would be the main place. Ein Dor would be probably the subsidiary of Dor. And that, like I said, all this is in the part of Menashe. Actually, it's in the middle, right there. Okay, and again, once again we hear that Bnei Menashe could not drive out the inhabitants of these cities. But the Canaanites were content to dwell in their in this land. What does it mean they were content? They were desirous, Rashi says. Which is interesting. They were desirous to stay because you would think that they would want to get out ASAP. Why would I want to pay taxes to this foreign group? But it could be like every other people that who cares who we're paying taxes to? We have to pay taxes anyway, so it could be under this rule, under that rule. Doesn't really matter. I'm not sure. Because that really is an interesting thing. When we have the same concept when the banks get swallowed up by each other, right? Because how many times if the bank would leave us alone, if Bank of America would have been swallowed up by First National or National, whatever it's called here, and we wouldn't have had to change our accounts, it would have been just our account and just change the number. Nobody would have left Bank of America or that place. Nobody would have left because you're just bothering us. We're used to just changing the accounts every couple of months. No big deal. But so the same thing when people come in, new rulers come in, new presidents come in. We don't all run away because we know you have 4 years, you have 8 years. What are we going to have? Congress, that's how many times they have. Nothing's really going to change. So I'm wondering if the Kanani also are feeling the same way. Okay, look, we had our Canaanite leaders, and they were Michiganers altogether. They were making headaches. These Jews are not going to be any better. They can't be any worse. Maybe they could be, but they don't know. And so they say, you know what? If you'll let us stay here, we'll pay you taxes. We'll live by your rules. And what do we care? We're just the people in the village anyway. Yeah. So it could have been that was the attitude, which would explain why they would be allowed to stay and why they'd be willing and desirous to stay. Because we know that just as our leaders were kicked out and we stayed, you also will be kicked out and we'll still be here. I mean, think about Notori Carter. The Jews who never left Israel. They had generation after generation after generation. There's always been Jews in the land of Israel, they say. And they never left because they figured these people they'll also run out. The Ottoman Empire will collapse. The Roman Empire collapsed. The Ottomans will collapse. The British will collapse until we finally are back with our own. And so they remained. And that's why you have some real generational Jews there that never left. And it could be the same thing for the Canaanites when they were there. If they would figure we can last it out. It would be interesting to know if that would be. You can't prove it, but it would just be an interesting theory. Okay. Yeah.
One of the reasons for the conflicts with the Romans is they'd seen all these other empires come and go, and you just paid your taxes to a different person, but nothing changed. But with the Romans, it changed.
Oh,
yeah, it did?
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, they wanted them to change religion and everything else.
Oh, well.
But that was only because they were, from what I remember historically, the only reason they cared was because they were xenophobic.
And the worship of the Roman emperor.
Right, but I'm saying they were afraid, so they were afraid of rebellion. So anything to squelch rebellion. If you wouldn't have rebelled, they wouldn't have cared.
They conquered all these other pagan countries, so what did the pagans care which gods they pray to?
Right.
Okay, you guys are stronger, your gods are stronger, so we'll pray to your gods. Fine. The Jews, no way.
And that's why they had to drive the Jews out and destroy them because they were and change the name from Canaan or Bnei Yehuda or whatever it's going to be to Philistia. That's the first Palestinians. Okay. Philistia. If the Palestinians would know that they're really Philistines, I don't know if they would appreciate that, but that's where it came from. They called it Philistia, and so that name stuck. How it got to Palestine, you have to figure out. That's just right.
Palestine.
Well, I don't know why it didn't become Philistine. It should have become Philistine. Philistia.
The Roman ending, this suffix, the A ending.
Yeah.
Philistia.
So it should have been. So I'm saying it should have been going back when we translated back. Should have gone to Philistine. I would think it would have been so great. Then instead of Palestine, Philistia. Yeah. That would have put it right into context. Okay, we find the Philistines.
It's close.
Right. Well, most people don't make that connection. If you would say that to Christians about they're Philistines, that would be it. Palestine, they can put up with. Philistia, they can put up with. Drive them out. Okay. But it's, so where are we? We're up to 12. Yeah, no, we said that. So 12. Again, it's not they couldn't, whenever it says they couldn't drive them out, it doesn't mean literally they couldn't drive them out. The rabbis always want to say that they could have driven them out, but the people were willing to pay taxes, and they said, stay, it doesn't matter. Like I said, this will become their downfall, because what they were supposed to do was drive these people out of the land, because God forecasted, prognosticated, that they would be the thorns in the side, because what the Canaanites are going to do, ultimately all these inhabitants are going to do, is to bring their customs, or keep their customs, and help to assimilate the culture around them to their liking. And that's, again, not hard to do. If I'm coming to, before I came to South Bend, I never knew about Hoosiers. I never knew about Notre Dame. I knew Notre Dame, but never Notre Dame. I never heard of Notre Dame. And all the stuff that goes on with South Bend. But we learn to acculturate ourselves to the people around us, and even sometimes pick up those accents. There is an accent to the Midwest, regardless of what people think. There certainly is an accent here. And sooner or later I'll pick that up too. But we get cultured. I'll give you another one. In Boston, when we talk about ginger ale, we don't say pop, we say soda. Please pass the soda. You say please pass the soda here, they'll give you soda water. There you go. But it's an interesting, that the change of words even. But again, you get used to all that. So my kids will probably say pop as they grow up, and when they
say pop here? I thought
they say pop.
In Chicago is pop.
Pop. They say pop. That's his pop here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pop. And like I said, all these things you become acculturated to it. So that's, you assimilate. These towns are like the Borg. Resistance is futile. You always are going to assimilate into that culture. So it could have been that these people, these Kanani, who are, again, remain in the town with their festivals and with everything else, their shopping days. So the Jewish community, which is living around them, and they're the dominant society certainly, but still they're seeing what other people are doing and seeing their holidays and thinking maybe they're not so bad. What's so bad about having Baal Worship Day, or the orgies that go with it? What's wrong with it? People like this. I'm sure PC was not the first, not created in this country. Politically correct speech was done a long time ago. So it's, people want to get along with each other, and that's why they become thorns in their side, because they very quietly will cause problems. Okay. Yeah.
What you said earlier about the Christians not being able to accept
Philistines,
but they accept Palestinians?
Yeah, because Palestinian is not such an offensive term in the Bible. There is no term Palestinian. So the Philistines were known as the enemy against everything. They were the fighting God constantly. So it was the Philistines versus the Jews, and so the Christians actually, if I'm correct, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, that was even the enemy of the Christians ultimately, the Philistines. That was their prototype of the what's the Philistine that? Goliath.
Yeah, they represent idolatry,
right.
decadence.
Right. So that was what the Christians heard when they would hear Philistines. So if you would have said that the people right now, if we would have translated it instead of Palestinian to Philistine, people would say, I can't support a Philistine. They're idol worshippers. So good. Palestinian is very nice. We can do a lot with the Palestinians. It's a matter of how I'm going to translate that. And I don't know if that was Palestinians didn't come out till 1949, the name in reality. There was no Palestinian people before 49. They were Arabs. They were Jordanians. They were whatever they were, Ottoman Empire. So the name is very recent, but and so they could have been that it was purposely
I
called
read
Palestinian.
That prior to the formation of the state of Israel, that the Jews called themselves Palestinians. But when the state of Israel, fine, well, we're Israelis now.
Right.
And then I think it was after '67, then the era was picked up on Palestinians.
No. The Palestinians were
Or
from
Palestine.
Palestine was certainly from the Palestinian people's struggle. Would be 1948, or it was Al Nakbar, what they call Al Nakbar.
Yeah, not until at least
That was 48. Once you split, once the United Nations gave it to them, that's when the struggle became Palestinian. But I'm saying it would be interesting to know when Palestine, what was called Palestine instead of Philistia, when that change came. That would be the interesting thing to know. Is it, like I said, was it because we wouldn't want to hear Philistines, or
which language was it changed in first?
Right, that's all. It's just a curiosity that I would have, So anybody wants to Google that, you'll tell me maybe next week.
How do they say Palestine or Palestinian in Hebrew or in Arabic? Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think we'd have a Palestine. We would call it Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah, I mean,
We're only going because remember it's coming from Philistia. Period.
What does it sound like in Arabic when they say it?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. Okay. So it's. Yeah, can I have a tissue, please? Thank you. Okay. So now, Yud Gimel. Thank you so much. Okay. Vayihi ki chazku b'nei Israel. And it was when the Israelis became strong, and they put the Canaan to tribute, to a tax. They did not drive them out. Okay, same sort of story. They didn't drive them out. So what happens? Vayidabru b'nei Yosef, and the children of Yosef spoke at Yeshua to Yeshua. They were saying, Madua netatali nachala goral echad v'chevel echad. Why did you give us one lot and one goral, one for an inheritance? V'ani amrav, I am a numerous people. Ad asher ad kol berachani Hashem, for as much as the Lord has blessed me. Why did you give me such a small amount of land? We're already getting into these sort of stories. So, okay. And Rashi says, Vayidabru b'nei Yosef, this is Shevet Menashe. This is specifically, it's not all of Yosef, it's the tribe of Menashe. It says, until that Hashem has blessed me, Ad Asher Ra'ita, until you saw Shenit Rabbe Minyonei, that you saw my numbers increase from the first counting to the second counting of Shnei Esrim Elef Chamesh Me'ot to of 22,500 Kaminyan Nechav Hey V'Gematria B'Minyan Rishon. Okay, so like in the first one, V'Yata Motzei B'Menashe Sefer Midbar Shnayim Shloshim Elef Matayim. That when it was in Midbar, they only had. They had 32,200, and in Pinchas, Shnayim, v'chamishim elef u'shmamiyos, and in Pinchas, Parsha Pinchas, so they would have 52,700. Devaracheh ad asher ad kol baruchu abracha ne'amra. Okay, so also they're going. We have a large group. Fine, give me numbers. Here's the numbers. He put it in English. The first number was 20,500. Then what you're going to go is they clamped at 32,200. Then finally, and they go to 52,700. So they've grown by 32,200. They've grown that much. And so he's asking, since we had such a massive increase in our population, we can't just have one little piece of land. So what is Menashe? Now, we have to understand their claim too for 1 second. how dare they, if you will, go up to Joshua? We're saying that this whole that the inheritance of the tribes was given by lottery. It was, in other words, by God's design. So here they're impugning God, it seems. How can they do such a thing? That's not good. And it says only the tribe, so the commentary digest will tell us, only the tribe of Menashe had grounds for such a complaint because of their sharp increase. The tribe of Ephraim, however, experienced a decrease. They went from 40,500 to 32,500. Since the land was apportioned according to the number of adults above the age of 20 who left Egypt, the tribe of Menashe would receive a proportionally small share. The division of the land was accomplished by Eleazar the high priest, who was endowed with the power of Ruach HaKodesh, which was, again, a type of prophecy. He was adorned with the Urim V'Tumim in the presence of Joshua and all of Israel. He had two boxes. We're going again how the lottery worked, just to review. He had two boxes lying before him, one containing lots bearing the names of the tribes, and the other containing lots bearing the names of the sections. He would announce, through divine inspiration, if the lot of Zebulun comes up, the boundary of Akra will come up with it. He would stir up the lots in both boxes, thrust one hand into the box of the tribes, and bring up Zebulun's lot. He would then thrust his other hand into the other box and bring up the lot bearing the boundary of Akra. So would he go through all the tribes and all the sections of the land. Joshua could not alter the divinely given share allotted to the children of Menashe. He therefore advised, and this we come to the next verse, he therefore advised both Ephraim and Menashe to cooperate in developing the forest encompassed by their lot, and ultimately by united effort they would be successful in driving out the Canaanites completely, although they had iron chariots. It also explains the operation of the lot as follows. The land was divided into equal portions, and to numerically large tribes such as Judah was then given an additional strip of land from the adjacent portion of the land. This accounts for the fact that the boundaries were often very uneven. This explains also the plaint of the children of Joseph, who claimed an additional slice of land from their neighbors because of their great numbers. Joshua, however, responded that adjacent forest and hill was potentially large enough to absorb all the additional population. Truth is, we'll have to stop here. So we're at line chapter 17, verse 15. We'll start off with Joshua's response to the request for more land.